Okay, this is going to be another command line tutorial. There are some very handy things that you can do on the command line that are helpful when you're using lots of files, when you're doing a lot of coding, and in general when you just want to get things done. So before we get into more Python programming, I want to introduce some very good things that you can do with the command line that will help speed up not only things that we'll use in programming, but things that you use for the computer every day. If you're finding yourself doing a lot of copying and pasting for either files or for other things, or for example, if you wanted to merge several Excel spreadsheets or something like that, you can use some of these commands to do a lot of jobs on the computer very quickly. So, with that, let's go ahead and get into a terminal or a bash screen, a command line, and go ahead and we'll just do some review as to some of the commands that we've learned previous. So we could type in pwd to see where we're at. One thing I didn't point out that is interesting, so you can see that we are in the users directory and in the Derek Miller directory. So there's a user whose name is Derek Miller, which happens to be me, and that is the folder that we're currently in. Now, if you wanted to go back one directory, we would type in cd space dot dot. That will take us back, and now if you notice the little tilde that was right here, now we are in the users directory. So if we do pwd again, we can see it's just slash users. Well, technically we can go back one more and we can say cd dot dot. And look at where we're at now. We are in a slash directory. This is what's called the root directory. It's where everything on your system is. Everything that, so this is how this is where everything is stored. We can type in ls to look and see what's all on here. So this is where uh, like the boot options are stored. This is where your computer, when it's going to load your operating system, this is how it knows to load your operating system. So in general, you should probably be very careful in this root directory. If I had a friend once who made the analogy between this is kind of like we've opened up the computer as if it was a person who was having open heart surgery. So we are kind of like inside the body now, and we could do some uh, intense surgical procedures, if you will, on this computer. We're directly working on the system, so changes that we make here could affect the entire uh, operating system, all of the software and everything that's already inside the computer. So notice we have this users folder, so if we wanted to get back, you could explore some of these other folders on your own time, but if we wanted to change back into the users directory, we could type in cd and then users. And that will take us right back to where we wanted to be. We could see what's in this, and looks like there's a shared directory and a Derek Miller directory. So far we don't have any other users on this computer, so we could switch back into the Derek Miller directory, which takes us back to what we have seen previously. Now if we wanted to kind of go back, then we could, and now we're in the root directory again. On lots of computers, if you type in cd, the command cd itself will take you out of this open heart surgery mode, if you will, out from the root directory back in onto the user that you are in. So since I'm kind of logged in as Derek Miller, this user, it will take me right back to the tilde, which represents this slash user slash Derek Miller. So the tilde is a placeholder for this thing right here. So CD took me right back out of open heart surgery mode. Now we're talking to the computer without being surgical. So let's go ahead and change our directory. Well, let's see what we have here. Why don't we do it on the desktop? That way we can visualize what's going on. So now we're on the desktop and we can see there are two folders right now. There's Derek's stuff and Sarah's stuff. Let's go ahead and make a directory using a command that we learned previous, mkdir. And let's go ahead and name the directory files. Okay, we could capitalize that if we wanted to. Yeah, why don't we do that? Okay, so I'm going to move it into the screen here so you can see it. A new file was just created, a new folder, a new directory called files was just created right here. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to add some files in here. Now, there is a really cool way to add files into a directory that you don't have to specify what kind of file it is. Or, I mean, you just give the file a name and it will write a blank file into that folder. So just like we created a blank directory, we are now going to use another command to create a blank file inside of our blank directory. So lots of blanks here, but we have touch is the command, and then we can name a file, call it file1.txt or something like that. So, oh, but before we do that, we should move into our files directory. So we can list, okay, so now we have our new directory called files. So let's go ahead and change directory into our files directory. Okay, and then if we type in ls, we should get nothing, which we do. So now let's go ahead and type in the command touch, which will create a blank file inside of our files directory. So touch, and then we'll call it file1.txt. Okay, press enter. All right. So now what do we have? Let's go ahead and see what we have in the directory, ls. Oh, look, we have file1.txt. Now, if we pulled this up, we can see, oh yeah, it did. It created a blank file, file1.txt. Okay, so now let's go ahead and create another file, a blank file. We'll call it, touch, and then we could call it, let's create a Python file which ends in .py. So we'll create code1.py. Alright, so now we have two files in there. That's great. Let's go ahead and we could start generating some other files now, but I want to introduce a command line text editor to you. So we've talked about text editors just a little bit before, and there are various ones out there. One of the ones that I like to use sometimes is called Text Wrangler, which I actually think if you just type it into the command line, I think it might work. Oh, but I might have to be in the regular directory. Yeah, that's right. So let's see if this works. I just want to see if I can type in Text Wrangler. Some things you can type into the command line and it'll actually, oh, and maybe I have to type in open. Oh, okay, well, never mind. There are ways that you can open things from the command line, and I haven't explored all those options yet, but Text Wrangler is one thing that you can do. So I'm going to just move back into the files directory. And there are others. One of the ones that I want to use now, though, is called Nano. And so Nano is a fairly basic one. I'll also show you Vim, but it's a way that you can edit files on the command line. So if we have our files here, code1.py and file1.txt, we could say nano and then file1.txt. And look, it brings us into this interesting interface here where we can actually write stuff. And it has a few command options here down at the bottom that'll help us kind of edit this file if we want to edit it. So let's go ahead and type in some instructions or commands that we have learned. So commands that are useful. We can do a colon and this. Press enter twice. We can do one. mkdir makes a directory. 2. Touch creates an empty file. 3 nano, a command line text editor. All right, and I'd recommend that you go through the commands that you have learned and go ahead and add more to these and just the command and then explain what it does. And that will be very useful to you as you can always refer back to this text file for reference. But now what we want to do is we want to exit. So the way that you exit will be there is a command option, so on a Mac, and we'll want to save it as well. So let's see, where is this? We want to, okay, yeah, so it's write out. Write out. So in the parlance of computer language speak, what they say for saving is called writing. So when you write to a file, that's the equivalent of saying we're going to save this. So we're going to go ahead and do, whoops, that's open. Okay, so I just typed in Control O. I'm on a Mac, so Control O. I believe that on Windows it should be the same Control O and Linux as well. So file name to write, and it says file1.txt, which is, yes, the file we wanted to write. We could write it to another file and call it something else. So what I would do is I'd press enter if I wanted to save it as file1.txt, or I could change the name and say, I actually want this to be file2.txt, and then I'd press enter. Save file under a different name, I can press Y or N for yes and no, or Control C for cancel. So let's say I didn't actually want to do that, and I wanted to call it file1.txt. I press enter. Okay, it tells me that I wrote 5 lines. So, and you can see that we did write 5 lines. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, so now what we're going to do is exit, and it tells us that the command down here is going to be Control X. So we'll go ahead and do Control X, and now look, it kicked us back onto the command line. So that's very nice. Nano can be customized for Python, so it can actually show you pretty colors as you type in your Python code, but and I can give a tutorial on that a little bit later, but for now let's just use Nano as a basic text editor. And then go ahead and let's do our code1.py. We'll go ahead and get into code1. I'm going to show you another text editor. You can use another text editor to follow along, so preferably maybe TextWrangler or Notepad++, or Gedit if you're in a Linux system. So we'll go ahead and go into code1.py. You're welcome to use Vim if you would like. I recommend going through another command, typing in another command to learn Vim if you're interested, called Vim Tutor. And if you type in Vim Tutor, it will actually take you to this right here, and it'll give you a tutorial of kind of what Vim is about, how to use it, and maybe you can see for yourself if you would like it. So, and then it actually tells you how to quit out of it, but the way that you would quit out of it is you would type in semicolon and then Q and then press enter. So for now, that is a few instructions on how to do Nano, the text editor on the command line. And in the next tutorial, I'm going to go a little bit more into the Python files and moving files around into different directories and such. So that'll be the end of this video, and see you in the next one.